Here at the Black Information Network, we know how important it is for you to start your week off energized, engaged, and enlightened. There are always major stories that break over the weekend, and we feel you should know about the ones we are talking about today. So stay tuned for our weekend recap featuring BIN senior editor and news anchor, Amber Payton. This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Ramses Ja. All right, Amber Payton, welcome back to the show. I know you've been busy over there on the East Coast, covering
of course,
quite a few stories. Anything to disclose? Anything to share? Any updates we need to know about before we get into the news?
I don't think we have enough time to go through all of the updates in the world.
I believe that. I believe that. Well, we'll have to table that for another day. Let's get to the news. First up, from the Daily Caller, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith ruled out running for president as a Democrat in 2028 during a CNN appearance Sunday, citing dissatisfaction with the party's current direction. Smith said he's keeping all doors open for a potential political run, despite admitting he hates the idea of becoming a politician. During an appearance on State of the Union with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, Smith made it clear this week that a 2028 presidential bid under the Democratic banner is off the table unless the party undergoes a major overhaul. Let's go to a clip so you can hear it in his own words.
If you were to run for president, though, it would be as a Democrat or no?
If I had to run, it would be as a Democrat, but I'm not happy with the Democratic Party. So the Democratic Party is presently constructed. It would pretty much need to be purged in order for me to assume that I would want to be associated with them and I would garner their support, because I don't like the way they've gone about doing a lot of things for a very, very long period of time. And I think that I don't view Donald Trump as winning the election. I view the Democrats as losing the election, as absolutely positively blowing it with some of their actions. And that's why I think that, again, if somebody was to associate me with that, the party is presently constructed where it leads so extremely left, or at least it spent the vast majority of time doing that. Oh, that is not something that I would vibe with at all. I would definitely be looking to be a game changer in that regard.
All right, Amber. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I think that it's very interesting that he is no longer interested in becoming a politician as soon as he gets a little halfway endorsement from Trump, because in the past he has been all for it. I remember he made a statement not too long ago. I had to go and look it up. He said it in a generalized way that we all need to come together. He said if it continues to get worse, we should all consider running, for crying out loud, rather than dealing with this nonsense. So he said that in a generalized way, but he also has made the comment, that he's leaving all doors open for a possible presidential bid. Now, all of a sudden, when Trump's like, hey, and he didn't really endorse him, but Trump didn't seem against it either. Now, Stephen A. Smith is like, no, never mind. I'm not interested in being a politician. Listen, at this point, I think that I agree with one thing that Stephen A. Smith said in the past, and that is somebody has to do something. Sure. Anybody. But his reasoning, with Democrats not being, I believe he used the word broken.
Yeah.
Is how yes. There is some misalignment going on. I mean, that's been pretty obvious in the news. We'll see. We'll see. That's all I got.
My thing is, I've heard this from a lot of different people saying that, Democrats missed the messaging. Democrats, weren't listening to voters. Democrats didn't have anything in place for the electorate. And that's effectively what, Stephen A. Smith is communicating here again. And I wish that it seemed that clear to me. But it just doesn't. I don't think that Democrats really missed they weren't listening to voters. They didn't, like Kamala Harris had a plan for Black people. She had a plan for, everything, and the plan wasn't, I'm going to raise tariffs and I'm going to, roll back DEI and the country's going to be better. No, that wasn't that. That's a non-plan. That's like an aggressive reaction to a plan. You know what I mean? Like the DEI initiatives were a plan to try to offset systemic issues and bring about social justice and economic justice, and so forth, right? And what Donald Trump has done is a reaction to a plan. But Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they had at least some semblance of a plan, right? Now, of course, I'm not going to agree with anything that everybody puts forth, but at least it felt like it was based in building rather than destroying or rolling things back or modifying rather, whatever.
Right.
But I think the thrust of what people have been saying about Democrats, I can kind of see that. I famously said repeatedly that Democrats had missed the mark in really one key way. But when I say this example, you'll see how it translates to other areas, right? Democrats were perhaps trying to move toward the center. And when you're in the center, you kind of get attacked from both sides, right?
Yeah.
So the Democrats weren't far right enough for people on the right. They're going to, there's triple Trumpers and the MAGA electorate and diehard Republicans. They're not like, if you have the name Democrat, that's a bad word in their mind, right? So it doesn't matter how far right you go. You're not going to get Republicans. There's something to be said about the independents and speaking to them. Sure, maybe that's something that exists. But Stephen A. Smith made a point here that I think makes this point. He said that the election wasn't won by Donald Trump. It was rather lost by Democrats. So it wasn't that Donald Trump won. He didn't come through with like, I got the plan and we're going to do it my way. And everybody's like, yeah, that's the wave. No, Democrats just dropped the ball. And my view is that they did that because they were trying to move toward the center to appeal to, moderates and, independents and people that were independent but lean conservative. They thought that was fertile ground for them. And what they ended up doing was losing the people who are legitimately on the left, right? Because that Democratic Party that ran for the last election was indistinguishable from a center-right party, to a lot of those folks, right? And, the point that I've made on the show that our listeners might be familiar with is Palestine. Just in my little world full of activists and people that are woke and don't feel like that's a bad word. That means better than being asleep, right? And, whatever else, people that kind of know what it is rather than kind of giving into the villainization of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How's that a bad thing? To those people, Democrats kind of saying, like Joe Biden saying that he was a Zionist. That's crazy to people that are on the left that are like, do you not see that they are dropping phosphorus bombs on children that didn't vote in the Palestinian election and they're dying? And that's the hill you want to die on, Joe Biden? And then, of course, that last minute shift. And to be fair, Joe Biden staying on longer than he really needed to, that didn't do any favors for Democrats. But then Kamala Harris trying to preserve people that would have reelected Joe Biden and to appeal to, the Israeli-backed donors could not say, hey, Israel has kind of overstepped. They've done a little bit too much. And the world is suffering as a result of this. We're losing precious Palestinian lives. I understand that we've lost precious Jewish lives here. No one's denying that. But, more death doesn't make this go away. And what Israel's doing is creating more death. And a lot of people just couldn't get on board with that. And then just the noise and the chatter. And then we take the Palestinian issue and you take it out and extrapolate it to, how people felt about, trans issues and, other issues, this, that, and the third. For Democrats standing in the center, they kind of had attacks from both sides. And a lot of people were just like, look, man, I'm not voting for them. So I'm not voting at all. Because I'm not going to vote for them and I'm not going to vote for them. And the couch won the election. And so Stephen A. Smith attacking Dems, that's the only real issues that I have there. The Democratic Party, sure, they're in a tough spot. But for I think, different reasons. It's not because of the.
Yes.
It was because they're not standing on the business of the party. You know what I mean? They're trying to mirror what the other party's looking like instead of offering a real alternative. So maybe that's what he was trying to say. Stephen Smith was trying to say, and I just heard something differently. But that was my take on, what happened. And I understand why they went with that strategy. I'm not knocking Dems either. I understand why they went with that strategy. But again, for the people in my world, again, all activists and people that are like, yeah, burn it all down. Those are my people, right? So they were like, yeah, man, I'm not about to vote for nobody that's actively bombing children. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And no matter what we said, like Donald Trump's going to do worse. Donald Trump's going to do worse. They were like, look, man, well, ain't nothing worse than death. So I'm going to stay home. You know what I mean? So that's,
yeah.
So anyway. Next up, this is from Rochester, Minnesota. This is Fox 9 in Rochester. A woman in Rochester, Minnesota was recorded in a viral video saying racial slurs when a man accused her of calling a child the N-word at a playground. The video has since gone viral after being posted on TikTok, and the woman has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars after claiming she and her family are in danger and need to relocate after being threatened to the extreme by people online. The video shows a woman holding a child being confronted by the man recording her. The man, speaking out of the camera's view, asked the woman if she called another child at the playground the N-word. The woman begins walking away before turning around and calling the man the N-word and making an obscene gesture. Quote, "He took my son's stuff," the woman said when the man pressed her. "So that gives you the right to call the child 5 years old the N-word?" The man said. And then the woman comes back, says, "Well, if that's what he's going to act like." All right. The TikTok clip was posted by Tizzy ENT on Thursday with a commentary and more than 10.5 million views as of Friday. The woman in the video has launched an online crowdfunding page that has raised more than $390,000 with the goal of reaching 1 million. The crowdfunding post claims that the video caused the woman and her family great turmoil after her personal information, including her address, phone number, and social security number, were leaked online. The woman says in the post that she fears her family will have to move and is asking for donations to help protect herself and her children. And I'm just going to add this because this was also in the article. The NAACP Rochester branch launched its own crowdfunding effort to raise money for the 5-year-old boy involved in the incident. Organizers say the money will be used for legal redress and social justice efforts in support of the child and family, legal advocacy and accountability efforts, and broader social justice and anti-racism work in Rochester to change the culture and ensure that this never happens again. That fundraiser has raised more than $100,000 with a goal of $250,000. So it looks like racism has a new dawn in this country, because once upon a time, you could say, racist stuff and lose your job and, lose your friend circle and people didn't want to be associated with you. But it looks like nowadays you can say it on video and get $400,000. So thanks, Donald Trump.
What is, let me tell you, I on TikTok, Tizzy ENT, he catches these stories. His whole page is dedicated to calling these people out.
Yeah.
Because when did people get so comfortable using that word? That word that's so offensive. Everybody's comfortable with it. And $400,000 worth of support behind her racism.
Yeah.
Towards a child.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to justify it. I saw the video. The child that she was holding looked no more than 2. And you're saying, oh, well, he took my child's things. They're kids. They're kids.
Yeah.
You were looking for an excuse like that. But $400,000 worth of support.
Yeah.
Supporting her racism. I was shocked. This was not, and Tizzy ENT, this was not his intent when he posted this video. And I can say that just based off of his page. Just in general, his whole page is dedicated to calling these people out. And it kind of backfired this time.
Yeah.
Like to post it and then people say, oh no, we're going to support her.
Crazy.
Well, I don't know what to say, Ramses. $400,000 worth of support. Racism is so
well,
so
I think people were saying that this is a response to the fundraising that took place for the I forget the name of him, but he was a student on a college campus. Do you remember this story? He was a student on a college campus. He was defending himself, and he killed a white student, and he was arrested for that. I got to look the story up again. We covered it. His name escapes me right now, but he killed a white student defending himself.
Track meet?
I think so. That sounds
Carmelo
familiar.
Anthony is his name.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that was it. So this is kind of a response to that. That's what I think. And when you look at the donors for this campaign, they're using like troll names like Nate Higgers and like
what?
Yeah, they're using to donate money. It's crazy, man. So it's not just this lady being racist. It's like all the racist trolls in the world, like giving money to racist.
They're coming together and they're supporting each other.
Yeah, man, it's a wild time. But you know, the wildest thing is that, you know, I think that to add on to what you were saying and help make your point, you know, we can look at them and be like, okay, these are just babies. These are children. They don't know. They don't have a proper concept of possession, ownership, theft. That, you know, these aren't concepts that have gelled yet, right? But we can say they're just kids because they are. But we have to also bear in mind that Black children are the only children that don't get to just be just kids. Well, I shouldn't say the only children, because I mean, the same could be said about, you know, our brown brothers and sisters too, and so forth. But white children absolutely get to be children, because like, try to imagine the equivalent. If a white child like came into my house is a fun place to be, right? There's like cool stuff everywhere, whatever. It's like all at the kid level, so you could grab it and whatever. If a white child, 5 years old or younger, grabbed something at my house and then proceeded to leave with it, if I went up to that child, could you conceive of me calling that child a racial slur? You know, whatever the white racial slur equivalent to the N-word would be? No. Or would it just be the fact that he's a child? So you see how Black kids don't get that? No. You see what I mean? Like, Black kids, oh yeah, you can go right to that. See, he's acting like one. That's what the lady said. So, you know, but this is, you know, Q and I talk about this all the time. This is that Trump effect, where these people feel like they are way up right now. They got all the levers of government. They got their guy in office, and he is on his, let's roll back all of this Black stuff. We're going to get rid of all of this women's stuff. We're going to get rid of all of that. The only thing that doesn't need to be touched or updated or whatever is anything that has straight, Christian, healthy white men. That's fine. All the rest of this stuff is woke DEI nonsense. But hold on, fam. Like, but that's how it goes.
It's disgusting.
So people need to vote. I mean, I just talked about it. People stayed home, but like, there is a such thing as it's worse. You know, there's a lesser of two evils. And for people that was like, yo, either way they die, so I'm not voting either way. This now affects everything, not just Palestine. It can always be worse, as illustrated by this current administration. For a lot of people, it's a stress fest for a lot of people. I live in a border state. People whose ancestral, like their family lived on this land before it was the United States of America, back when it was Mexico. There's people that live on this land before Mexico existed. Native people, right? All of these people, where this is their rightful home, now live in a more fearful country because the rest of us didn't want to vote, because we thought that both of the two evils were the same. So, something we all need to keep in mind.
Hey, what's up? This is Ramses Ja.
And I am Q Ward. And we're inviting you to subscribe to Civic Cypher, our weekly social justice podcast right here in the app.
We pride ourselves on creating a show that fosters allyship, empathy, and understanding, all the while conducting journalistically credible research, featuring influential, noteworthy guests, and empowering historically marginalized communities.
The African proverb reads, if you want to go far, go together. So we are asking you to search for and subscribe to Civic Cypher.
That's CIVIC-CIPHER, right here in the app.
Black Information Network senior editor and news anchor Amber Payton is here with us discussing the weekend's major stories. All right, this from NBC. Actor Terrence Howard revealed that he refused to portray Marvin Gaye in a potential film because of the Motown singer's rumored homosexuality, saying he'd cut his lips off if he ever kissed a man. The former Empire star made the comment during a nearly 2-hour appearance on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. Howard went on to say that the filmmakers would have wanted to explore Gaye's rumored homosexuality and that he could not kiss a man. Quote, "I would cut my lips off," Howard said. "If I kissed a man, I would cut my lips off." Howard attributed it to him not being able to fake it and that he could not act a role he did not understand. Maher told Howard he would not want to kiss a man either, but I would not do that in reference to Howard's self-mutilation comment. Okay, so this one was intense. So your thoughts? To me,
Marvin Gaye wasn't openly. That wasn't something that
I don't think so.
So then why are we putting it in the movie anyway?
I guess this is something that the filmmakers, I mean, there's rumors and from what I understand, Terrence Howard went and talked to Quincy Jones before he passed and kind of verified the rumors with him for what that was worth. That while Marvin Gaye was married to, I think he was married twice to 2 women, that he had enjoyed or preferred or longed for, I don't know the details of this man's life, the company of men.
But if Marvin Gaye wanted that in the...
This is just a rumor. You know, I got to make sure that that's stated. But the filmmakers here said that they wanted to explore that rumor and that they wanted for Terrence Howard to, I guess, kiss a man in the film. And so, you know, here we are.
Listen, everybody has their boundaries. They have their limits. All money is not good money to everybody. Mm-hmm. But if Marvin Gaye didn't put that out in the public when he was alive, why would we do it now? Why would we exploit his?
That's a good point.
A rumor or his privacy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah,
I let that man. People used to say that, and I still don't know if this is true. People said that about Luther. I didn't know that about.
Oh, they
Luther.
didn't they?
Listen, but if he wanted us to know that, and he wanted to live by that, he would have told us.
That's fair.
Marvin Gaye would have told us.
That. Okay, I go with that. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. You know, there's some things that people were like this.
If we're going to honor them, then respect their wishes.
Sure. Yeah. You know, there's things that have happened in my life where they don't define who I am. They're not worthy of going into a film about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the time, I either didn't know any better or whatever. Like I shared a story on this show before where I stole. They used to have these 5-cent Ninja Turtle coloring books. I'll tell you how long ago this was. Ninja Turtle coloring books back in the 80s. This had to have been like 1985. I was born in 82. And I remember that I got these coloring books and I just took them. I took them out the store. You know what I mean? I was like, well, I mean, I don't have 5 cents, but I'm sure I'll have 5 cents at some point in the future. So, you know, I'll look for it on the ground or something and I'll bring it back. But these coloring books, these are dope. They got the Ninja Turtles and I just took them out of the store. Nobody stopped me. I don't even think anybody knew. And it was intent. I remember doing it because I was like, I guess I was conflicted about it. Like, should I do this? Is this okay? But I know now that what the difference is. But at that time I was questioning. I was like, no, if I ask, they might tell me no. And then I can't give them the money later. And so, you know, whatever. But I remember that memory. And if that went in a movie about my life, it would make me seem like a thief. You know what I mean? And I don't think that I am. And, you know, Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore. And I couldn't tell you whether or not they got their 5 cents or whatever. But I'm sure they did. You know what I mean? Because you could find 5 cents. That was my thinking. You could find 5 cents on the ground and just bring it back. I just don't have it right now. And I'm not, we had to walk to Toys R Us. I grew up poor. So this is in Compton, California. So anyway, I think your point is well made. But I think that what I don't want to lose sight of, though, is Terrence Howard's reaction to portraying a homeless man or a gay man. OK, so here's what I Here's my thoughts. Yeah, if you have boundaries, you're in charge of your physical body, and whether or not you have a job or whatever, at the end of the day, you have to live inside of your own skin. And if you subject your physical body to something that is inconsistent with your nature, that's a decision you have to make for yourself. Everyone should be entitled to that. And for him to say, you know what, for the sake of the art, I cannot subject my body to something that I'm just not that. Ramses is not going to go and play a white person on television. I just don't, my hair won't let me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it does not relax. So, it's not something I could do. I couldn't be authentic to it, so I wouldn't try. I can't play a woman. My voice is too deep. I had all this hair on my face. It's just not really, it's not that kind of party. So I understand saying, hey, look, that's not something I can do. But when you say something as extreme as I would cut my lips off, that almost makes it feel like you think that homosexuality is like dirty or like repulsive or something like that. Like I could not even stand the sight of my lips on my face knowing that, you know what I mean? Like it just seems so extreme. And that type of language, that type of rhetoric and attitude is very hurtful and dangerous, I believe, to our homosexual brothers and sisters, gay men in particular, who historically have kind of been like shunned for something that, in my belief, and based on any natural metric, by natural, I mean occurring in nature, is normal and healthy. It happens. Okay. And there are scientific proofs and so forth of this happening and why it happens. There's theories and so forth and so on. And the only thing that really is based on belief is when you talk about like religion and faith. And the thing is, we've often been able to prove science, and we have not yet been able to prove conclusively faith, right? Yeah. And so in terms of logic and reason, and I'm not, look, my father was a minister. We talk about this all the time. I grew up in a faith tradition, Church of God in Christ, to be specific. But if we are going to kind of regard each other as brothers and sisters dispassionately, then I think that having a scientific method of doing so helps us to remove the mindset of this is dirty or this is whatever. You can disagree with it and be a faith, a person of faith. You can disagree with it and be a person of science. You could say it's just not for me. But to kind of suggest directly or indirectly that it's dirty and that it's gross and that it would kind of ruin or taint your body in some way, I think that's just a bit extreme. And I think that creates more harm than it really needs to. You can just say, yeah, that was a bridge too far for me. I just really couldn't see myself in the role. But God bless whoever does bring it to life. Or, I tried to tell them that part of the story is not necessary. Marvin Gaye has a wonderful, amazing human story. And he's given the world so much, and something that we didn't know about that was based off of a rumor doesn't really need to appear in a film where we're condensing his entire life in an hour and a half. You know what I mean? He's worth more than that. And so I think that your point is well made there as well. So that's just my thoughts. All right. For the final story, this is from the Black Information Network. Buckle up. This is a weird one. A South African mother has been convicted of kidnapping and trafficking charges after allegedly selling her 6-year-old daughter's eyes and skin to a local healer. On Friday, May 2nd, Kelly Smith was convicted of trafficking her daughter, Jocelyn, age 6, following her disappearance in February of 2024, per People. Smith's boyfriend, Jacqueline Apollos, I believe that's how it's said, and the couple's friend, Steveno Van Ryn, were also found guilty of kidnapping and trafficking trafficking charges in connection to Jocelyn's disappearance. During Smith's trial, a neighbor testified that the mother informed her of plans to sell Jocelyn to a traditional healer who, quote, wanted her for her eyes and skin, unquote. The mother also allegedly said she did something silly and sold her child to a Sangoma. A neighbor also testified that Smith offered money to those who knew about the plan to keep them silent. So, you know what I'm going to say, but I think you're probably going to say something similar. So, ladies first.
Ramses, I don't quite know what you're going to say. I looked at the screen. I had to look at my face because I am I think my face said everything that my mouth just can't.
That's why I'm like, oh, you saying what I'm saying. So,
like I'm so. And where, Jesus, where is the daughter? That was my question as I'm listening to you read. I'm like, well, is she okay? Is she alive? Is she, because to sell her for her skin and eyes, or that was your intention. I'm just so disturbed who are you trying to heal? Like, there's so many. Ramses, I don't have it.
Well,
I don't have it. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say more or less the same thing. This was a crazy story, and I'm glad it's ended in them being convicted. Okay. The only thing that I had in terms of like the whereabouts of the daughter is that she disappeared and is yet to be found. So I don't know
that part I picked up. Yeah,
I don't know where she is. None of that. But this is just an odd story. It's kind of gross, and these stories make my stomach turn. I'm a father, and I can't get jiggy with this. So.
And I'm not a mother, and one day would like to be, right? And so when I hear these stories about these people who have these kids, and this is what you're doing with these babies,
apparently
we're not protecting them. We're trying to sell them for their eyes and skin. Like it's disturbing and disgusting.
Yeah, well, that's the part I thought you were going to say that I wanted to say. It's disturbing.
It took me a minute. I had to get my words together.
No, you got it. You got it. You stuck the landing. So. We'll leave it right there. Don't forget, these and more stories can be found at BINnews.com. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and your insight. Once again, today's guest is BIN senior editor and news anchor, Amber Payton. This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show was produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I'm your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. And join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.